Well, my name's Peter. Oh, my name's Peter Miro. I hope you're all doing well, and thank you for welcoming me to speak about my experiences and mental health journey. I grew up in the London area of the UK and have more or less stayed around the same sort of areas I would visit as a child. I had a fairly normal childhood, and my family would teach me to be very accepting to all people regardless of their background, religion, and sexual orientation. Something that which would later become an issue for me later on in my life. I always knew I was different from other boys in school, and I think at an early age I knew this, and it somewhat troubled me growing up as a teenager. I had a happy primary school life, but when I went to secondary school, I went to a school which was different from all my friends. And then I struggled to make new friends in the new environment. I was bullied in my years of secondary school, and this would often have the theme of being gay put to me. This would strike my heart with a heavy blow each time I was taunted from the bullies. I never really made any new friends, but in the month and year of December 1993, I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at the age of 13. This was a life-changing condition, which even to this day has me on my toes trying to manage it well. I was suddenly thrusted into the world of insulin injections and monitoring blood glucose levels, and back then changing my whole diet quite suddenly. The next few weeks of my diagnosis was a whole puzzle of trying to manage my diabetes and school life. And then something would change my life, but I didn't actually realize until years and years later on. I began to start hearing a lone voice, which seemed fairly normal to me. I thought everyone had this voice around them, but it was different to the internal voice we all have when we're thinking and doing things. That voice I had was not critical of myself and had no opinion of my life. He would only comment on what I was doing at the moment, almost like a running commentary in my head, but heard as you hear me now, as a person outside of my mind. This lone voice would continue for many years to come, and I would come to accept it that it was just a part of me. Many years had passed, and I had entered the working world and worked at Barclays Bank headquarters in their post room, sorting and delivering post around the building to their employees. It was a very logistical job which involved being on my feet for hours at a time. I experienced bullying at secondary school, but this bullying would, unknown to my knowledge, begin at my workplace too. No one at my place at my work knew I was gay, and as a young guy in my early 20s, I was still trying to find out about my sexuality and deciding where things stood in my life. This, however, did not stop my colleagues in my workplace from taunting me about being gay. I would often wonder, do they know? How do they know? And why are they saying all these hurtful things to me? It was almost as if someone had let them into my secret that only I knew, but how could they know? At the age of around 27 years old, that lone voice multiplied from the lone voice to now 3 voices. But these 3 voices were different, and they were aggressive in nature. They had opinions and would often push those warped homophobic views on me, which they do still until this very day. The 3 voices declared themselves demons in nature, and that they had been sent from hell and the devil directly. I struggled with my employment bullying situation, and now the voices had appeared, and I began to become more and more paranoid about life in general. I didn't trust my colleagues as they were already causing me issues by bullying me. Management in my workplace were notified eventually due to me having to forcibly come out to them when I felt that was my personal business. I had worked straight for almost 10 years, and then suddenly all things were breaking down in my life. I had a misdiagnosis of depression from a locum GP, but my mother knew that things weren't right and contacted my own GP for him to listen to my problems and refer me to mental health services. I went through many months with different diagnoses becoming apparent. The mental health professionals often take some time before they will settle on a firm diagnosis. In August 2010, I was officially diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. This diagnosis seemed very scary to not only myself, but would be a conversation killer when meeting new people. I went through cognitive behavioral therapy as well as just talking therapy, which has helped to some degree, but certainly isn't a cure. just a way of finding out coping techniques to deal with the voices. I still hear the three demonic voices on a daily basis and pretty much all the time, but I've learned to live with the situations that arise. I'm more able to deal with the things the voices say to me, and the voices are very derogatory in nature. They taunt me about my sexuality and how it's wrong in the eyes of God. The voices will put me down still and chip away at my self-confidence, but through my own exploration of some self-love and a good regular fitness regime, I have learnt to disregard what the voices say to me and help myself. I don't currently work in any capacity due to my ongoing mental health struggles, but my daily visits to the gym help me a great deal. The gym helps me to focus my frustrations and gain some self-confidence in myself, and I find it as a great tool at my disposal. My symptoms have been mostly hearing voices as well as paranoid thoughts and ideas. This hasn't been without difficulties coming to terms with this, and one thing that I would say to others that have schizophrenia and hear voices is try to learn to accept the voices. Try to accept that they exist, and don't be dismissive of them, as for me, this can work against me. I go to many lengths in my mind to accept that they exist and that they tell me truly awful things about myself, but also that they are just saying these things, but cannot actually harm me physically, although they do threaten me with violence on many occasions. I have to tell myself that they cannot physically harm me, and what they are saying is just lies. If I were to start believing what they say to me, which has happened in the early days, then I wouldn't be here today to tell my story. Medication has played some role in my journey, and I do take antipsychotic and antidepressant medication on a daily basis. The medication is not a miracle cure, but only helps with trying to manage the symptoms. Most of what I have achieved today with my own mental health is a combination of medication and my own insight into the condition. I think schizophrenia for me is a bit like my type 1 diabetes, and that it's a condition like diabetes that has to be managed. Thank you.